Now we've learned. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We've learned up to now. Let's give charity. We have to start the day with charity coins and put them in the charity box. Charity box. Tzedakah. Israel ein nigolim ela b'tzedakah. The Jewish people will be redeemed with charity. So we're learning about what is the Torah and what is the Torah and what are the commandments. When God on Mount Sinai, when he was when he took the Jews and he gave them the Torah, he spoke to all the Jews, right? This is the basis of Judaism. This is the basis of reality. That the Creator cares. There is a Creator, and the Creator cares, and the Creator has an exact plan for the world, and it all depends on the Jewish people. The Jewish people receiving the Torah and manifesting, doing what it says in the Torah. Doing, saying, thinking. And this is the purpose of creation. That's the whole purpose of creation. And if it seems to be that the world is very meaningless and orderless and confusing, as you're right, it is, because the Jewish people are supposed to fix it up. And if they're lazy and they don't, so like any other thing, if it's supposed to be, you have a car, you don't take it in to be checked up. You don't care about it, check the brakes, things like that. So eventually, things start going wrong, no matter how good your car is. The same thing as the world. The world was created perfect. And the Jews are supposed to be here to fix it. So what are the Jews supposed to do? So that's the idea of the Jews are supposed to reveal God in the world. They're supposed to reveal God's pleasure in this world. Because God is creating the world all the time. He's creating you and me. And when God's pleasure is revealed, then where is it revealed? In you and me. In us. So to do this end, for this end, I mean, this is so unusual, what I'm saying now. And it's so incomprehensible that when the Jewish people got the Torah, God spoke to them as their souls jumped out of their bodies. It was just too real. Too real. Their souls jumped out of their bodies. We're not talking about a spiritual revelation. We're talking about a revelation of the Creator of the spiritual. Okay, so when God gave this, what happened when God gave the Torah? So two things happened. Number one, God gave the Torah. And number two, God gave commandments. The Torah has to be understood. And in the Torah, there are commandments. And you can't get the commandments out of the Torah without the rabbis. You can't get it. You don't know what to do. The Torah, it's like in a code. So God gave the Torah and he gave the commandments. The commandments are God's will. The Torah is God's wisdom. So here we're saying, what is higher? What is higher to a person? Wisdom or will? We'll just take a human being, right? What is higher in a person? Right? Let's say grandpa is in a coma. And all of a sudden he comes out and he says, opens up his eyes and says, I want water. So there's no wisdom involved in that. There's just will. He wants something. There's a sign of life, but it's like the lowest sign of life. He just wants to do something. On the other hand, if he says, I want some water because I'm really thirsty, and when a person is thirsty, then it means that his organs are not functioning properly. And he has to have water because water is the basis of blood and of the human. And all of a sudden he says all these wise things. So you realize, oh, that's grandpa. That's grandpa. He's revealing his essence. Right? And that's in Chachma, that's Bina, that's understanding. Chachma is like the source of awareness, of intelligence, of consciousness, etc. So that's like the deepest thing. So it says the Torah really comes from God's chachma. That comes from God's awareness, his wisdom, you want to call it, his essence. And the commandments, that's God's will. That's sort of the lowest of revelation of God. Of course, God wants the lowest. That's the most important thing, is this physical world. Right? But God gave the Torah and the commandments in this world. Good. The Rebbe here, he links it up to Kabbalistic idea. And that is that in serving God, there's basically four ways, emotions, if you want to call it, in general, of serving God. There's two types of love and two types of fear. Here the Rebbe just talks about the two different types of fear. Fear. Now, fear is a very healthy thing. if it's directed in the proper way, it's this essence of life, fear, right? That's why people drive on the right side of the street and people don't, jump off of buildings on their own, because life is precious and it's so very precious that people don't want to lose it, which that's very healthy. That's very healthy. That's fear. Fear is a very, very healthy thing if used properly. Fear is the reason why a normal person will follow his conscience. You don't want to steal, you don't want to lie, you don't want to cheat, you don't want to this. Why? Because I don't want to do the wrong thing. That's called a healthy fear. If you want to call that, that's called the upper fear. And the lower fear is like the police. I don't want to do because the police will catch me. I'm not going to do a crime because the police will catch me. I'll be put into jail. It says that if there's no police, that people would eat each other alive. Why? People don't have conscience. They wouldn't follow the conscience. That's called the upper fear, is following your conscience. I'm just giving an example. This is not what God demands from us when he gave the Torah. This is just in general. Just giving an example of how there can be a lower fear and an upper fear. So a lower fear means you fear for yourself. You feel yourself. You do what's right. You avoid what's wrong. That's the commandments. That's the commandments that comes from the lower fear of God. Now we're changing the whole paradigm here to serving God. And the commandments are you do what you're supposed to do and you avoid what is forbidden to do. Doing, that comes as a result of the lower fear of God. I don't want to do the wrong thing. Maybe I don't want to get punished, whatever, but the main thing is doing. The upper fear is understanding, feeling. You feel the essence of God. That's corresponding to like a person that he does good because his conscience tells him. He turns from bad because his conscience tells him. He doesn't care about getting punished. It could be that he'll even lose. By following your conscience and doing what's right, it could be I'll be punished. Right? People are loyal to their country. They're loyal to the right. The prisoners don't break. They don't crack. They don't give the secrets because they're loyal to their country. What do they get out of it? Right? They're just punished and tortured and everything. So loyalty is, of course, you can be loyal to the wrong things also. People are loyal to the mafia. They're loyal to all these things could be put into bad or good terms. Okay. So the Rebbe links it like this. Let's talk about on good terms. Good terms is God gave the Torah. There's what's called the lower fear of God, that's doing the commandments, and the upper healthy fear of God. Both are healthy fear. Upper fear of God, that comes from the Torah. The Torah is the source of the commandments. Says the Rebbe. So this level of chachma, that's called fear. That's called upper fear. But in order to get to this level, to draw down this level of chachma iloah, the upper fear of God, the upper fear of God, in other words, doing what is right because it's right, avoiding what is wrong because God says it's wrong, not thinking about yourself. That's called chachma. Chachma means surrender, total surrender to God. That's called the upper chachma of God. That's the source of the Torah. Shabo malubash, that in it is clothed, or Ein Sof Baruch Hu, the infinite light of God, really. And it is totally united with God, beyichud gomer, with a total unity. 1 second. Let me make this bigger over here. How do I do this? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Bigger. Oh. A malubash, which is in the physical world, bechinas yira charada gadola, this, to have a feeling of this tremendous fear, awe that the compatriots of Daniel felt. That Daniel felt. Hananiel, Mishael, Vanzaria, right? His three friends that were with Daniel, says they had a tremendous fear fell on them. But Daniel saw the vision and they didn't see it. So they didn't see it. Why did they have a big fear? It's because their mazel saw it, the essence of their soul. It says the essence of the soul, that's what aroused in every Jew. Aroused in every Jew. Okay, now just coming back to this thing, what we're talking about here. If you notice, the Rebbe is not concentrating on a spiritual experience. He's not concentrating on a spiritual experience. The Rebbe is concentrating on what will bring us to be aware of God. God, the creator of the spiritual. That's what happened when God gave the Torah. Right? If you want spiritual, there's all these Eastern religions. There's a lot of Eastern religions, and they recognize the spirituality of God, that this world there's much more to this world than meets the eye. And there's all these different spiritual levels that there are. Spiritual levels. And you can get to these spiritual levels by leaving your connection to this world, and you get spiritual levels and you meditate and then this. But all of those, they're all, how do you say, based on human, what I get. And here we're talking about what God gets. Totally, how do you say, I guess there's no better word for it. You can call it crazy. In normal terms, you're just doing what God says, right? Doesn't make sense. Totally not selfish. That's what it's supposed to be. That, by the way, is the source of anti-Semitism. Abraham was the first person to recognize that your whole life should be lived not for yourself, but for the Creator. And if so, it'll come out all right. And by Abraham, it did not come out all right. Now it's coming out all right when the Moshiach comes. But he was promised by God all sorts of things, and God didn't give him anything. But he did the truth, and people couldn't stand that. He was telling people to serve God because it's right. People say, well, what am I going to get out of it? So you're going to get out of it, you're going to do what's right. People said, get out of here, leave me alone. I don't know what you're talking about. I want to do what I want. That, by the way, is the essence cause of anti-Semitism. It says Sinai, Mount Sinai, when God gave the Torah and the commandments, the same letters as Sinai, hatred. Hatred. That was when it really came into the world. Okay, so let's leave it. That was the basic idea of Zionism. Zionism said, we'll leave Judaism, we'll leave Torah, mitzvahs. No one's going to hate us anymore. They won't hate us anymore. We're going to put an end to this hatred. We'll be a people like everybody else, and everybody is going to, and it doesn't work. Why? Because you can't get rid of it. It's the essence of reality. It's the essence of what reality is. So, and every Jew carries it with him. Whether you want to or not, you can't get away from it. You can't imagine that I'm just a nation. There's a nation of Jews. We're not a soul. We haven't got a soul. We're just like everybody else. And the whole world says, "Oh no, you're not." This is the Rebbe trying to tell us what's the good side of this is. I mean, if you just think about it for 1 second, so the whole world hates us. Why? Because we're different. So now you want to be like the world. You also want to hate people. You want to be like them and hate people just because you don't understand them, right? Why copy all these, right? Anti-Semites are basically people that they're against God. They're against the Torah. They're against the commandments. They're against the essence. They're against good. Why hate somebody just because he's a different religion, right? Al Zelm, where it says, Im ein yira in chachma, on this it says that there's no fear. That's the lower fear. There's no chachma. That's the upper fear. The hibachin is yira tatoa. This is the lower fear of God, which you get by doing the commandments. Actually, by doing the commandments, it opens up a door that you realize that that's what God really is. God is the author of the commandments. That's what he wants. That's why he's creating the world. You start to do things only for the Creator and you don't think about yourself. That ideally is what the commandments are. Of course, as we see, it's not an automatic elixir. What do they call it? They call it, what's a word? There's a word for it. Panacea. It's not a, you know, the word panacea, nice word. Panacea. Panacea means a cure for everything, automatic cure. Look it up. I think that's what it means. The Torah is not an automatic cure. The Torah, when you do the Torah and the commandments, it fixes you up. It takes away your selfishness 5%, 10%. The rest you have to do on your own. Because the commandments, but what are the commandments? The commandments are the commandments of the king. And when you do them, you put on yourself the king. You realize, I am not the king. I am not God. As long as you're dealing with spiritual things, then you can think everything is for me. when a Jew does the commandments, suddenly he realizes this is not for me. I would never dream of inventing tefillin on my own, putting tzitzis on. Who would invent such a crazy thing? And what does it give me? It says, what does it give you? It gives you a door to your creator, a door to the fact that you are nothing. And that the only reason you're here is because God's creating you. So you're infinitely more important than you can believe, man, from God's point of view, because you can do the commandments. God is creating you to do the commandments, to serve him. That's what it means. That's called the lower fear. This is a preparation. The lower fear is a preparation that by means of it, you can draw down the essence of godliness, which is by means of the Torah. So it's true, people learn the Torah and you don't see their, a halo over their head, or they're radiating, or you don't necessarily even see that they're acting different than anybody else, because the Torah does not take from us our free will, but it does give us an opportunity to choose doing what God wants, thinking what God wants, saying what God wants, feeling what God wants. That's what we say when we say in our prayers. We say, God, make us holy with your commandments, and then afterwards give our portion in your Torah. First of all, the commandments, that's introduction. That's like the engagement party. And learning the Torah, that's already taking it internally. That's like marriage. It's like this. Pirush Kadshenu, we say the Jewish people are supposed to do 100, they're supposed to make 100 blessings every day. 100 blessings every day. And there's 3 different types of blessings. And one of those type of blessings is you bless on the commandments. Commandments you do. There's blessings you make in prayer, and there's blessings you make of thanking God, right? You eat food, and then there's blessings you make of the commandments. When we make of the commandments, so the wording of the commandment is like this: Asher kirishanu b'mitzvotav, that you made us holy with your commandments. And we say this in our prayers also. Kadshenu b'mitzvotecha, make us holy with your commandments, and give our portion in your Torah. And Inyan means like this: Kadshenu, make us holy. This is like kiddushin. This is like getting engaged, irusin, like it says, Arasticha li le'olam. I am engaging you. I am marrying you forever. Hainu ali de mitzvahs. That's the commandments. The commandments is like the wedding party. The wedding party. Shekamo, just like kiddushin, when a person makes they say marries a woman, engages her. The same thing, marriage. We're talking about just the formal, before there's an actual physical connection between them. When a person in Judaism, a person, I think in non-Jews also, they do the same thing. Sure, under the wedding canopy, what do? And they put a ring. The man puts a ring around the finger of the bride. The non-Jews also, the woman puts a ring on the finger, but that's not. The main thing is that a man puts a ring because a man marries a woman. The woman doesn't marry the man. In order to marry a woman, you have to give her money. It says that's one of the ways of marrying her. You give her a certain amount of money. In this case, you give her a ring, which is worth that amount of money. Which that amount of money is like, I don't know, $1 or something, a quarter. But the idea is that you give her on the intention that you're married to me. This is only an external thing, just putting on the ring. And by means of that, like the commandments, that's like being engaged. By means of this, mitkadeshet, the woman becomes married to the man, the niknitzlo, and she then after that, she becomes, they become one by means of bia, which that's sexual intercourse. This is hamshacha penimis. This is an inner connection. The same thing is with the Jewish people and God. The commandments, that's like the wedding party. That's like the engagement. Hagam shein bechinas chitzonius, even though they are external, and it's only an external connection, but nevertheless, behem v'al yadam naaseh bechinas kiddushin. By means of this, we're doing a very external thing. You do the commandments, but really what you're doing is you're making an external connection to the king. You're making God your king in an external way. You're doing what God wants. You become holy. That's the idea of holiness. Holiness means you have some connection to God. You're giving yourself over to your creator, which that's health, right? like we say, everybody has a heart, everybody has a lungs, everybody has a stomach. They're healthy when they're totally devoted to life. The same thing, the world is healthy when it's devoted to the Creator, because the Creator is the life of the world. First of all, step number one is when the Jews do the commandments. The commandments are essential because they're external, beginning first meeting with God. And from this comes a deeper connection with the Torah. The Torah comes internal. It's an internal. We take God's ideas into our mind. It's internal. The commandments, you don't have to understand what you're doing. Torah, you have to understand. That it's revealed, this wisdom of God, the chachma of God, in an inside way, in a zivug v'yichud mamash, in a way of like a sexual union, so to speak. That's the whole Zohar talks about. God is masculine, we're feminine. That's why also in our prayers, we always refer to God as masculine, because God is the giver. He gave the Torah, he creates the world, he gives, and we're the receivers. But like a wife, she has to, how do you say, unite with her husband. She has to dress nice, she has to appear nice, she has to, right? She has to be appealing. Oh, and how we are appealing with the commandments. This is, the commandments are like the garments of the bride. Garments of the bride. I was at a wedding the other night in Israel. I mean, this is, the Israeli people are really weird. The Israeli people, the men, they don't dress up nice. The men don't have to dress. Sometimes they'll pay a tremendous amount for clothes, but the groom, he had like this T-shirt on that said, I'm marrying whatever her name is, and the bride, she was dressed up in, with a beautiful bride's gown with, with a crown on it and everything. And it looked like she was getting married to the janitor or something, really amazing. So the men, they're not so, they dressed, he was dressed nice, he had nice, but it basically had on a T-shirt, a white T-shirt with written on it, I'm marrying something like that. I'm marrying. It was nice, he had her name on it. And so the main thing in the marriage is really the woman. She's dressed up nice. She's the sort of the center of attraction. And who is she trying to attract? Mainly the husband. That's what we're doing when we do commandments. We're become the center of attraction. We're trying to be attractive to God. We're putting on the commandments. The commandments are like the garments of the bride. But this is all preparation for the inside unity. The real marriage of a man and a woman is when they have sexual relations afterwards. The wedding is just this big party and everything like that. But the inner relationship, that's in quiet. That's in quiet. They're only alone. No one is there. No one, God forbid, no one is supposed to see. It's a quiet, intimate thing. An intimate. Says the Rebbe, the same thing. The commandments, that's external. The intimate connection is with the Torah. A person learns the Torah. Like the rabbis say, and it's a sentence in the Song of Songs. The day of God's wedding, this is when he gave the Torah. This is really the wedding day of God. God gave us the Torah and the commandments. And therefore, Omer Rizal, the rabbis say, call the Omer, Torah. A person that says that all I have is Torah, I'm just sitting and learning Torah all day, then even that he hasn't got. Why? Because it's impossible to draw the Torah from its source, namely Chachmei Eloah, God's upper fear, upper wisdom, the upper reality of God. It can't draw it into yourself in a real inner way, without doing the commandments first. First of all, you have to have the basic fear of God, chitzoni, external. There were people, enemies of Judaism, they always try to knock away the commandments. The commandments are the big thing. They change the commandments, they alter the commandments, they negate the commandments. The commandments are not necessary. You don't have to do commandments, right? Just God. All there is God. There were Jews, a lot of Jews, that were experts in learning Torah. They could learn the Torah very well, but they didn't do the commandments. The classic example is Yerovam ben Navat. He says there was nobody in the whole generation that knew the Torah like he did. When he would sit and learn Torah, said there would be fire around him. And he convinced all of the 10 tribes to worship the golden calf. He built 2 golden calves. This is the first temple. Right after King Solomon died. And he built 2 golden calves, and the Jewish people, 10 tribes. Jews like idolatry. Idolatry is very popular. That's why Christianity is so popular, right? So popular. Christianity, people like, Jews especially, they like idolatry. What are you going to do? But the main thing is to get rid of the commandments. That's it. When you get rid of the commandments, then you redefine what God is. God suddenly becomes this spiritual feeling of me, myself. I become awakened. Not that those things are bad, but that's not the essence of God. The essence of God is the commandments. That's the external connection to God. That's the marriage of God. And the inner connection is learning the Torah with proper fear of God, awareness of God. That's what the rabbis say. That after a person accepts on himself the yoke of heaven, after he accepts the yoke of heaven, then he should do the yoke of the commandments. Why? Because you cannot have it is impossible to be kiyum and miti, any sustained connection to God, to doing the yoke of heaven. Sheba Parsha Rishon, that's the beginning of the Shema Yisrael. That you do my commandments. That by means of this you can actually speak the words of Torah, and the words of Torah become meaningful to you. It can't be unless you do the commandments first. She'en bechinas kedushin. This is what we said in engagement. So if you think about it for 1 second, how is it supposed to be? A man gets engaged to a woman. Basically, when he gets engaged, the engagement party is, and also putting the ring on the finger. That's part of it. Is the woman says, "I am loyal to you. I'm loyal to you," and the man says to the woman, "I'm loyal to you." It's a declaration of allegiance, a declaration of, I would say, unity, a declaration. For a person, let's say a woman, right? She has all the men in the world. There's how many men in the world? The 3 billion, 4 billion. And she says, no, only one man. You're the only man. That's the only one. That's a very big change. That's a very big change in consciousness, in life goal. Right? There's some people that they can't get married. They can't make the decision. They can't limit themselves to one woman or to one woman to one man. You have billions of people, only one person I'm united to. Because the difference is that the billions of people, that's external. And one person is going to be an internal, eternal, internal connection. Ideally, that's what the commandments are. Ideally, that's what the commandments are. The commandments are pledging intimate allegiance to God. That's called kiddushin. And even if you don't even know what you're doing, the reason that you're doing it because God said, and you don't even know what God is. I think I've said this about 5,000 times, but every day I go out, since the October 7th thing, I go out every day to a nearby public place and I ask people to put on tefillin. And every day that puts on, I go for a half an hour, 40. Every day there's like at least 4 people to put on tefillin. Well, sometimes there's 15, 20 people put on tefillin, right? And I guarantee you that not one of them has any idea why they put on tefillin. And they ask me, why do you put on tefillin? I say, Jews have been putting on tefillin for 3,300 years. You know why? They say, why? I said, because they also don't know why. 3,300 years, no one has any idea why. We're not doing it because we're religious. We're not doing it because be part of the Jewish people. We're not doing it to go to heaven or to save us from hell. I'm sure that there are people that do it for that reason. But you don't do it 3,300 years for that reason. Especially you don't know if you go to heaven or hell yet. Heaven and hell is not stressed in Judaism. Why do you do it? Because God says to do it. It's a connection to God. You know what God is? No. But I'm sure that God exists. How do you sure? I'm doing his commandment. I'm doing his commandment. I don't want the person is not religious. He doesn't want to be part of any religion. He's not Chabad. He's not Ger. Not anything. But he's a Jew. That's called kiddushin. You attach yourself to the infinite. And the infinite is not a spiritual feeling. You don't know what you're doing. It's a feeling of, I'm doing the right thing. But he calls it, all this is derech seder avoda. This is only if you do things in a normal way. First of all, you have the lower fear, doing the commandments, and afterwards, then you can feel godliness in the Torah. But afterwards, in chachma, in yira, then afterwards, if there's no chachma, doing the Torah, then that increases the lower fear. Then you draw down the upper fear in learning the Torah. So I'm sorry, I changed a little bit. I made a little mistake. First of all, you do the Torah. If there's no year, that's the lower fear. Then there's no chachma. That's the Torah. Okay, so first of all, there's the commandments. That's the lower fear. That's the commandments. And then by means of that, you can get chachma. That's the Torah. And afterwards, by learning the Torah, it says that there's no chachma. That's the Torah. Then there's no fear. That's the upper fear. By learning the Torah properly, then you connect to the upper fear. What's the upper fear of God? Hamshachas chachma, drawing down God's upper wisdom when you learn the Torah. Shabbat, that in the Torah, melubash umiyuchad is unified, yichud or ein sof, the infinite light of God, ad shetiplu alav ema b'pachad, until you can have this level of the upper fear, like the companions of Daniel felt. And these are basically the people in the Talmud. The people in the Talmud, all of them had this level of this upper fear, this upper awe and awareness of the essence of God through the Torah. That's the men of the Talmud. That's why it says the men of the Talmud, they had it says the least of them had the ability to raise the dead. The pupils of Rabbi Yehuda Nussi, he was the last of the Tanaim. His pupils had the ability. It's a Gemara, which I just finished learning it in Avodah Zorah. The Seder Avodah Zu, this is Sheikhas Achar Shekavar Nitna Torah. This is after the Torah and the commandments were given to the Jewish people. Right? God gave the Torah, Jewish people. So now you want to approach God. You want to connect yourself to the God who gave the Torah. So first of all, you do the commandments. And then, first of all, you have the lower fear of God. That's through the commandments. And then after that, that brings you to do the Torah. And the Torah then becomes a vessel for the upper fear of God. That's now since God gave the Torah. But when God gave the Torah in Mount Sinai, and that's what we're talking about here, that the Jewish people did not yet have the commandments. How could the Jewish people receive this upper fear of God? We said the only way to receive the upper fear of God, you have to open yourself up first. You have to have, first of all, the engagement. That's the commandments. The commandments that opens the door. That's the lower fear. But when God gave the Torah, they didn't have the commandments yet. They had a few commandments, but it wasn't the same commandment. It wasn't the same power. First, when God gave the Torah, first he gave the Torah, and then he gave the commandments. That's how it was in Mount Sinai. Nowadays, when we want to serve God, the first thing is the commandments. That brings a lower, what's called awareness of God. The commandments, that opens up the door to the upper awareness of God. But that's after God gave the Torah. That's nowadays. But what about when God gave the Torah on Mount Sinai? Then there were no commandments. The first thing God gave was, he changed the order. First of all, he gave the Torah. Al-Zeh, that's what it says, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. And this it says that God himself came down on Mount Sinai. On Mount Sinai, God, he began the whole thing. He revealed this upper fear, this upper awareness. Shahayata et the ruta de la'ela, there's an arousal from above, the ratzon yitbarech, God on his own, uletzorach shah, temporarily. So that's the whole novelty of the giving of the Torah, that God gave his essence. Nowadays, we're just receiving the Torah. We do the Torah. It's all, so to speak, coming from us. We have to start out from below. We do the commandments, and then we build ourselves up, and we think about God, and etc. Then we can do the Torah. Then we can come to the upper awareness of God. That's now by us. But when God had to start the whole thing off, he kickstarted the whole thing by what? By giving the Torah. When God gave the Torah, he gave it himself. That's mentioned in the book, the Song of Songs by King Solomon, Shir HaShirim. It's like a bride and a groom. That first of all, the bride catches the groom's eye, and he pursues her. He pursues her. Derech Adam Lirdof, it says. Right? He says, would you like the date? Or would you like the hello? What's your name? He starts off. Right? They say a man chases a woman until she catches him. He catches it. The same thing. God, he chased after the Jewish people. He started the whole thing off. He gave the Torah. But when God took us out of Egypt, God did everything for us, right? He did the courting. I'd say courted us. That, and look in the book of the Song of Songs, King Solomon, that's what he's talking about. We're running after God. God is running after us. He's chasing us. We're chasing him. Nevertheless, the Jewish people understood on their own that it can't go on like this, that God is going to be the beginner all the time. We have to wait for God to reveal himself. It's not going to go that. That's not how the world works. First of all, we have to do the commandments. That God revealed himself at Mount Sinai, that was just the introductory offer. They say free sample. But after that, we have to do the commandments. Therefore, the Jewish people, before they received the Torah, they said, God said, you want the Torah? The Jewish people said, Na'asa v'nishma. We'll do whatever it says, and then we'll understand. That's the essence of the Jewish people. Right? Crazy. It makes no sense. Someone comes up to you and says, would you like to buy a house in New Jersey? I'll buy it, and then I'll look at it. That's nuts. That's crazy. You don't do that, right? I understand you want to get married to a girl. I have a girl for you. Her name is Rachel. Want to get married? Okay. Don't you want to see her? I'll get married first, and then I'll see her. Nobody does that thing like that. I got a job for you. You want the job? I'll take it. But you didn't hear anything about it. You don't know what type of job. I'll take the job. Right? It could be a job that's cleaning out sewers or whatever. Nobody does a thing like that. First of all, you understand what's involved, and then you take it. Not the Jews. When God came and said, I'm going to give you the Torah. Want the Torah? They said, we'll do it. We'll take it, and then we'll understand it. First of all, we'll take it. We'll do it. Nasel, we'll do it, and then we'll understand it. Why? Because the Jews understood that here we're talking about the Torah. We're talking about God. It's impossible to do nishma. We can't understand God. We can't really appreciate God, namely, that's the Torah, in an inner way. But first of all, we have to do the commandments. Liot kelim umishkan lasharat imshachazu. If you don't have the commandments first, and you learn the Torah, you become a big shot. The Torah makes you big. You become great. You become wise. You become a leader. You become a big rabbi. You become important. You become a central feature. Right? Everybody stands up when you come into the room. Then you're really important. The Torah makes you big. Right? What are you doing the commandments for? The commandments. Any fool can do the commandments. But if you do the commandments first, and you realize the whole reason I'm in this world is only in order to serve God, and I'm doing the commandments, I don't understand what they are at all. It's just pure godliness. The Torah, I don't understand it. The same commandments are done by the greatest genius of Judaism and the most simple fool in Judaism do the same commandments. But the same commandment is exactly the same thing. So that shows a sign of surrender to God, external surrender. And then when you learn the Torah, you realize the Torah is not to make me big. The Torah is to make me small. That I start to realize how great and wonderful, amazing God is, greater than anything I can possibly understand or appreciate. But this can only be, you have to do the commandments first. Mishkan, then you make like a dwelling for God's revelation. Is that what result? That's what the rabbis say, that when the Jewish people said Na'aseh v'nishma, all the angels said, Mi gila razeh, who revealed this secret? And actually, God said it. Who revealed the secret to the Jews? The Jews said, we'll do whatever you say, God, and then we'll understand it. Shehi ba'emet, because this is really Bechinet Raz, this is a very deep secret. What's the secret? The Torah, that's godliness. That's amazing. That's this. Without doing the commandments. But the Jewish people know, they understood that the essence of Judaism is surrender to the Creator, above understanding. Sod shehi behelam. This is the secret. Doing the commandments opens the door to the connection between us and God. A connection which is totally above and beyond any comprehension. The essence of God, the commandments. But the connection is in an external way. And the main thing is to bring the same unity that we have with commandments on our bodies, to bring this also into our mind by the Torah. Every idea we have of the Torah, this is a godly idea. Godly idea. And of course, the whole basis of the thing is faith. because not necessarily you don't feel all of a sudden godly when you learn the Torah, but you do feel a certain sense of truth. Like when you can lie and make $100,000, or you can tell the truth and you lose it all. Somehow or other, the truth is more valuable. How you don't feel it, you don't get anything out of it. When you're $100,000, you can buy a new car, you buy new clothes, you be flashy, be successful. And telling the truth, maybe you'll get a job as the janitor. Better to be the janitor and being truthful than who says that? Where'd you get that from? I don't know, but it's true. There's the same thing. The Torah is doing what's true. But you can only get that truth of the Torah by preceding the commandments first. That's what was revealed at Mount Sinai, as we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. That's why there had to be, first of all, the counting of the Omer, etc. We'll talk about that, God willing.